The first speaker is Miss Yukako Yoshioka, please.
A big lesson for a little girl. When I was a little girl, I was always envious of others. If a girl had a pretty doll, I badly wanted to have one. If I saw a boy eating something delicious at a restaurant, I begged my mother to order the same dish, even though I had already ordered something different. When my elder brother got a passport and went abroad, I asked my parents to let me get mine again and again. At last, when I was 11, I received my own passport. My parents sent me on a week's trip overseas with a group of other children and adults. The tour they advised me to go on was not to a popular place like Australia or Hawaii, but to a country where very few people ever go. I went to Nepal. Nepal is a beautiful country at the foot of the Himalayas. All the mountains around us were covered with deep snow. At night, we could see beautiful stars all over the sky. I was deeply moved by the scenery, but soon I began to see the real life of the people there. When I was walking along the street, a little boy came up to me and held out his hand, saying, "Please give me money." It was the most shocking experience for me. I had often asked my parents for money to buy toys and candy, but I never imagined a boy of my own age would ask me for money. I also noticed that many of the children running around had no shoes on and were wearing clothes that we would just throw away in Japan. For the first time in my life, I realized that there are many countries not as wealthy as Japan. For a few days during the tour, we went trekking in the mountains. We walked along the mountains for over 6 hours a day with the help of the native guides called Sherpas. They carried all our heavy baggage. I felt sorry for them, so I offered to help them carry some bags. But they wouldn't let me. Later, our tour leader told me they earn their living by carrying our baggage. If you carry your own bags, they will lose their jobs. Among the Sherpas, there was a boy only 14 years old. He was supporting his whole family, and his dream was to save money and to visit Japan someday in the future. Then I learned that they earned only 120 yen a day. He will have to work many years to realize his dream. People in Nepal are not rich. Many of them are living hand to mouth. But most of them seem to be living cheerfully, and they are grateful for what they have. We live in a country blessed with wealth. We have a family that gives us security and love. We have both education and opportunity. Nepal taught me never to take these blessings for granted. I will never be as foolish and wasteful as I was before. Thank you.
私は武蔵中学校に行って今年で5年目です。で1年目は彼女は小学校の時習ってません。中学に入ってからで1年生は SSH を教えまして、2年生になってから暗唱大会やスピーチコンテストに出すわけですけれども、彼女と同級生の子どもたちが何人もいましたので、彼女は高松宮杯に出るチャンスがなくて、他のお友達が高松宮杯で全国大会に行ったんですね。で彼女は中学3年の時に熊本県の英語暗唱大会で県で優勝しました。そして2年経ってたまたま私は高校の英語の暗唱大会の審査員の一人として行きましたら、彼女が優勝することになったんですけれども、2年経っても今日の子どもたちが天野先生が教えてくださったこの2年間の英語っていうのは、彼女にとっては3年間の私との出会いですけれども、その2年経っても私はもう衰えているどころか本当に素晴らしく成長している。久しぶりに教え子に会いまして、実は彼女のその時あった喜びよりもその後ですね、高校の今英語研究会の事務局が第二高校にあるんですけども、その一人の事務局長の方が私に手紙をくださいました。そしてあまりにも彼女の英語の先生たちのための会誌を作るので、優勝者の気持ちを書いてくださいと彼女に頼みましたら、すごい素敵な文が書いてあった。とても感動したから先生にぜひ読んでいただきたいから送りますという手紙とともに彼女の文が来たんですね。私はもう職員室でそれを読んで涙がボロボロこぼれたんです。で今日彼女が来れなかったらその文を読んで皆さんにお聞かせしようかなと思ったんですけど、来てくれましたので、今日は今から彼女にその時の暗唱大会の暗唱していただきます。では、セカンドスピーカー、ミス京子坂本。
Spring in Japan. Last year, for the first time in nearly 20 years, I spent the spring in Japan. Normally, I'm teaching in New York at the time. Spring in New York, though brief, is also beautiful. And because the newspapers do not report on the opening of the cherry blossoms, it is possible to enjoy them in the parks all by oneself or with only a few people in sight. But even as I stroll under the cherry blossoms in Central Park, I remember again and again with nostalgia spring in Japan. My first spring in Japan was in 1954. I was living in Kyoto at the time. I had reading books about the cherry blossoms at various sites in Kyoto, but nothing had prepared me for the plum blossoms. I visited the Kitano Jinja at the beginning of January, when it was still too cold to say that spring had come, and was astonished to see robine bloom. The yellow waxy blossoms looked unreal, but their scent brought back memories of the many Japanese poems that mention umegaka. To tell the truth, my sense of smell is rather underdeveloped, and I have never been moved to compose a waka by the scent of kobai or hakubai. But even I can appreciate the scent of robine. Scent or no scent, it is fitting that plum blossoms rather than the showy cherry blossoms or peach blossoms should be the first opening of spring. They create entirely different impression from the others. Instead of a profusion of blossoms hanging from the boughs, one sees each blossom individually. Last year, I visited for the first time the Byron under Osaka Castle. The many varieties of plum blossoms ranging in color from white to pale green to deep red was worthy of a Chinese painting. But the effect was formal and dignified rather than brilliant. It is easy to imagine why scholars were traditionally associated with these hardy flowers that bloom amidst the cold winds of the world. It is also easy to see
Why nobody drinks sake or dances under plum blossoms? Thank you very much.
の学習の授業でした。またお手伝いいただいた人たちにも感謝いたします。ありがとうございました。あとまた皆さんの感想なり先生たちとあとお話し合いをしたりすることがこの後ありますので、またご父兄の方本当に遠くをねわざわざここまで子どもさんをお連れくださってありがとうございました。感謝申し上げます。お気をつけてお帰りください。はい、じゃあみんな用意してくださ
もうね、もうあなたたち